Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to what I understand is the last session of the conference. Is that right? Cool. We made it. Yeah. I almost made it. We're not. Well, I'll let you know in about 45 minutes how things are going. I'm Tim Doherty. I'm with Wowza, and I'm an SC, which means I spend a lot of time on the phone or a Zoom meeting helping people hook up streaming media stuff. I try to take a regular guy approach and just make stuff work. I'm sure you all know exactly what I'm talking about. I've bit off more than I can chew. I did this same session at the other streaming media event in New York, and I had like 2 hours, or maybe 3 hours. So I've done my best to condense it down. How I like to approach it, if you got a question and if I can see you, I will totally call you out and we can talk it out. But basically what I want to do today is cover the concept of on-premise streaming. So you're in a situation where you don't want to use the internet for streaming. Well, we've got options for that. We also want to, of course, cover some cloud streaming workflows, meaning I just want to stream it somewhere. Maybe you want to have a little more control over it. We'll cover that in some detail. That involves CDN and pushing over to social media. I did a session earlier pushing to Twitch, Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube all at the same time. This is going to be a little less intensive than that. I think I'll just push a stream to Facebook. And then if I can, some things, I know a lot of you, or I've heard a lot of you are interested in enterprise streaming. I'm not talking about the Starship. I'm talking about the company. On screen number one. Anyway, enterprise streaming where you may just want to stream inside of a building or across a WAN. It can be intercontinental, meaning we deal with people all the time that are streaming to branch offices all over the world. I'm going to do a live event streaming, and that's kind of implied. You know, everything that has to do with cloud implies live event where it auto scales through a CDN. We're going to record it and we're going to play it back because you EDU guys, people in the EDU space and people in training, and maybe you just want an archive. Of course, you want to see that it actually records and you can play back. And then if we have time, I'm going to do an ultra low latency stream. Sorry, obviously typo. And ultra low latency is kind of exciting. In fact, I was just demoing it up here before the session. It works, believe me, and it'll work during the demo. So that's the approach. I'm going to dive right in real quick. This is the workflow summary. On the left side, you see input sources. That can be anything from an IP camera, an encoder from Teradek, Epiphan, Matrox, whomever. You can use our Go coder, which is mobile-based. We also have an SDK, so if you want to bolt on a camera and mic solution onto your really cool, awesome app, you can do that. And of course, on the left as well, you see VOD, audio. Basically, the source is on the left, and then we work it through a streaming environment to the right. If you go around the top of the diagram, it's Wowza Streaming Cloud, so you're going from a facility through the network up to the internet, and then it meets a cloud server, gets transcoded. There's some opportunities there. Gets repackaged into Apple HLS, Adobe HDS, if anyone's actually using that, Adobe RTMP, RTSP. It does the transcoding loop in the cloud, and then the same thing happens, but at a much more customizable level on the bottom of the loop with Wowza Streaming Engine. Wowza Streaming Engine is a piece of software you can literally install on anything from a Raspberry Pi all the way up to a high multiprocessor server. So Wowza Streaming Cloud is intended to be turnkey, auto-scaling, lean and mean, very robust for large streaming events, and you'll see the contrast as we go through the technologies. And then Wowza Streaming Engine is just a scrappy piece of software that you can scale. You can have literally hundreds of servers, and we do fortunately have customers who do that. They build their own content delivery networks with Wowza. All the way down to you can have a regular i7 desktop class PC running Wowza, handling your IP cams. I just popped into my mind, Seattle, the city of Seattle uses it for their traffic cams. And they're used widely for all kinds of use cases, DOT, military. I'll kind of gloss over if I start to try to think of all the use cases that they use video for. And we'll cover it in a little more detail when I have a slide that actually helps me. So the agenda I have here, I'm just going to pull all these guys up because, like I said, I bit off more than I could chew. But I want to give you some visual reference. Again, I like to show the technology and then talk about it. and then show the technology and talk about it. So it's going to kind of be a back and forth between the slide deck and me showing a few tips here. So first of all, I want to show you what it's like to install Wowza Streaming Engine. It's actually pretty easy. So I have with me a server that's just running here locally, and I am going to show you how I would install Wowza. First of all, I'm going to go over to Chrome, and I would go to wowza.com, and I would go to the download section, and you'll see, and we have quick start guides for this, so don't take notes, please. Just go to the support site, and it will explain the steps. You can run it on Windows, Mac. It doesn't transcode on Mac. It, of course, is on Linux 64 and 32-bit. I have a 64-bit Ubuntu box here that I'm going to install on. I just simply copy the URL, and I go back over to the terminal, and I find the directory where I want to install it. Let's see if I can make this big so you can see all the Linux mistakes I'm making. See, I don't even know where I am. I need to go in my Wowza folder. And then I just do wget, and I paste the URL. See, that was really impressive. Copy the URL, not the text, copy link address. I just think this is cool how you can just download stuff in Linux. And thanks to the actually super fast internet connection, I'm downloading a pretty good chunk of data in just a few seconds. So you download the file. I think I've got... now that I've got it sitting here in the directory, it's Wowza Engine 471. I will change the permissions. So I need to, again, you're going to see my Linux mistakes. I like to run it in root. I don't know if that offends anybody, but it just makes my life a lot easier. chmod-x, and then I do Wowza Streaming Engine installer run, and then I do, was plus X? Robert Reinhardt has my back to this afternoon. So that's how we do it. Okay, and I should be able to, there we go, we run the installer. Hopefully it actually runs. So please read the license agreement. You guys all read license agreements, right? All of you? Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm reading it right now because I'm a droid. So we bust through this. And it's very similar in Windows too, except it has a nice, pretty wizard to it. Wow, this is like taking a long time. Do I accept the agreement? Absolutely. And then I'm going to go grab a license key. I've got a cheat sheet here. Again, I showed the I showed my stream keys this morning when I was doing a session on social media. Now I'm showing an actual Wowza license. Fortunately, I'm going to have it blacklisted after the show, but anyway. There's my license password. I'm going to call it password just to offend all of you. And I'm going into setup. Username is going to be admin. That's very unique. And that's it. That's what it means to install Wowza Streaming Engine. Now, why go through that? I think it's good to illustrate that anybody can do this. Wowza is not a piece of software that you have to actually go to school or have some type of computer science degree in technology. It probably helps a lot, but you can download this, use the support site, start reading quick start guides, and you can be streaming in no time. And let me show you how to do that, actually. So I'm going to get out of this because I'm probably not going to use this VM anymore. And I'm going to go back to my agenda. So we did the installation. Now I want to set up a live application. So once you have it installed, you have a UI that you can log into. So right now, and I'm jumping ahead, but if you can see the top of this browser, you can see the IP address and you can see it's port 8088. This is me switching over to a server that's currently running in AWS. I just deployed this afternoon for this session. So it's a virgin server, if you will. There hasn't been anything really done to it. Just what I need for this session. So I'm logged in, and now this is where the fun starts. You can actually see what the server's doing. You can start to configure streams. You can start to pull streams from my IP cameras. You can begin to configure security, DVR. We'll go through a couple of these things. So let's set up so that we can stream from my computer here up to this server in AWS. Now, granted, you could also have this running in your computer room. You could have it running on your desk. But for sake of sanity, I did it in AWS because demos tend to not like me. So over here you have what's called an application. And an application is, when you want to create one, you just hit Add Application, and there's a few options inside here. I'm going to boost this a little so you can actually see it. You can choose if you want a live application, which is implied, live streaming, a live edge application, which is, I've got a server in Phoenix and I've got a server in Dallas. So I want that edge application on the edge in Phoenix. When it gets a request, I want it to go over to Dallas and hit the origin application. So for enterprise streaming, that's a big deal, because I might have 2,000 people in Phoenix, and I only have to provide one or a handful of streams from Dallas to serve all of these people. So if you're an enterprise guy and you don't want people hitting the internet connection, that's money. So again, that's how you would create where you would create a live edge application. And when you create it, it looks like this. And again, this might be kind of foreign to you, but it's a bucket of settings. So you have a monitoring capability. So when and if people are connected, you can see how many, what protocol, how much bytes are going in and out. If you have actual incoming streams, which we'll demonstrate in a second, you can see how many and how many transcoders are running. You can set up the player. There's just a boatload of things you can do inside here to configure your streaming server to work best for you. Right now, I'm going to set up this live application to come from Wirecast. One thing you want to note here, you see these little check marks, like MPEG-, HLS, RTMP. These are probably familiar to many of you. Microsoft Smooth. You can turn these on and off. And if you're tuning a server, meaning you really only need to stream it, say, to iPhones and Androids and Chrome, for example, or browsers, for example. You don't need smooth streaming. You don't need HDS. You really don't need RTSP, but I like to leave that on for a comfort layer for testing, and RTMP the same way, and I don't need Dash. So I can thin back how much work the server has to do when it repackages the video. So I'm going to save that. Oh, there's a couple other settings here, like CORS, cross-origin resource sharing, and you can choose the directory where you want to save files by default. You can turn on closed captioning, and because closed captioning is such a big deal in broadcast, you might have different closed caption protocols that you're working with, limiting connections. It's a deep dive, but there are a lot of configurable things here. I'm going to save it. Typically, when you make a change, it asks you to restart. Another one I want to call out here, just again, it's hard for me not to go into all these features, but it has a DVR capability. Some people call it time shifting. From a real basic standpoint, if you have Comcast, Spectrum, DirecTV, they have DVR, and you can scroll back, if you miss something, or if you have a recording, you can go over commercials. It's the same thing except for live. So I just hit Enable DVR, which adds the DVR capability to the app. Inside here, you can tell it to, record everything, or record up to an hour. I'm going to set it to 30 minutes. And I tend to do that right out of the gate with DVR. I actually had a conversation with the engineer who built the DVR function, and I said, why do you have it record everything by default? Because when you spin up a server in EC2 and it's got a small hard drive, if you have an IP camera hooked up to it, it'll literally fill the hard drive up. So I like to throttle the DVR back a little bit as just kind of a general practice. But here it is, it's ready to go. Down here we've got transcoder. Now, I want to have you raise your hands and say how many of you know what transcoding is, but that feels like a dumb question. Transcoder is, I'm going to be sending about 6 megabits from Wirecast. And it's just a simple image. But I can't get 6. Like, have you noticed that Verizon LTE, I have Verizon, I can barely get online here. I'm not going to be able to watch that in this room on my LTE, just because the configuration, the architecture, whatever. So transcoding enables you to pass through that 6 megabit stream, but you can also transcode one down to 2.5 megabits. and at the same time have 1 megabit or 500K or even audio only. And the player grabs a playlist from the server when it connects, and it's got a little list of streams that it can connect to. And so if the player's having a hard time connecting to the 6 megabits, it can switch down dynamically. So that's why transcoder is really cool. And again, thinking about enterprise, thinking about education, anybody who's wanting to stream in their own world, you've got a pretty robust situation where you've got DVR and you've got transcoding, and you're not going out to the internet. You're not going to YouTube, or you're not going to some service that provides those automatically. Like YouTube does it automatically. If you go to YouTube Live, you can see the little red HD, and you can see that there's different profiles that you can select for a live stream. You're doing that yourself with your own server. So I'm going to turn on the transcoder. It's risky for me to take a dive into this, but these are the default settings. There's the source, and then 360p and 160p. So it's literally passing the 6 megabits through. Because I know this server is pretty powerful, I'm going to have it also do a 720p, and I will also have it do the 240p, just because this server is just begging for a lot of work. So just one look at the transcoder setting. You can control the codec, you can control the bit rate, and if you have GPUs, you can choose them. There's quite a bit of properties and configuration that you can put into transcoding to modify that stream. It would take a session on that for me, and probably someone who's extremely expert on transcoding to really translate that. But at the base level, you've got codec, bit rate, and then you have some cropping and resizing that can be done as well. So this stack of transcoder settings that I had up before, these are just going to basically be transcoding into different bit rates. So let me check my agenda, see how we're doing here. We've got NDVR and transcoding. I want to actually use it now. So let's go over to, let's go back here. Please, thank you.
Were they really the default bit rates? You had 720p at 13 megabits per second?
I was looking at that. Let's take a look at that and see what it's really set to. I agree with you, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, and I just thought, oh, maybe it's just my eyes and it's set to 1300. I'm not going to worry about it. It looks like it's at 1300. 1.3 megs, yeah. So, no, but let's bump it up just because we're on the topic. Let's make it like 2.5. Makes you feel powerful, doesn't it? Or maybe that's just me. Okay. Gotcha. I agree, and it tends to be, in bits. Wowza was born of XML configuration, so it hasn't been just 3.5 years that we even had a UI. It used to all be done in a directory structure with XML. So the people who built that tend to like that. So thanks for calling me out on it. Let's do a stream really quick. This, again, is the easy way to do it. I go to Live Sources, and I am going to use Telestream Wirecast because I have it on my computer. And I'm going to call the stream name Tim, or I think I called it Wirecast Tim. There it's auto-filling, so I am cheating a little bit. And I can download a config, so I'm going to double-check it. IP isn't the local IP. Everything looks good. I download this. I'm going to call it I'm going to call it Wirecast Tim. And then I go into Wirecast, and I have to make this a little bigger. Maybe not. I go into Output. Am I going too fast? Thank you. Go into Output. I already have a couple in here, but this is the one I was doing earlier. But just to keep myself honest, I will remove it. And let's add it. It's an RTMP server, but we're going to use the Wowza Streaming Engine preset. So when I do that in Wirecast, I have the ability here, I'll slow down a little to import the Wowza config, where I go and get that file I just downloaded. Notice I've got a nice new URL here, and I hit OK. Now, one thing I just realized is I have security turned on in this application. So you see this over here where it says source security? This is where you can, oh, I don't have it turned on. But if I did, and that's default to have it turned on, you need to send a username and a password from the encoder. Now, I don't want to deal with that right now because we're pressed for time. So I'm going to go ahead and hit publish in Wirecast, and I am expecting it to start streaming. It is enabled. Turn that one off. I'm going to cover that one later. And I'm going to start streaming. And this is not blinking, so it looks like I've got a stream that's active. Back in the Wowza application, I go to incoming streams, and this is what you've got. There's my source stream, and then here are the transcodes that are coming out of there. So if I view them by group, and we're going to play this back as a group, you can see that the stream name is wirecasttim_all. You can download a playlist that has that group in it using what we call a stream name group. So the source stream right here, it's coming in at about 5.2 megabits, I think. I can double check that. And then if you go down here to the 160p, you can see that it's really low. It's like 700. So if I wanted to play one of these, I just click on it. It preloads the test player, and then you should see the stream come up here. I don't see anything. Ah, there we go. I'd make it a long way in production. Yeah, and so there it is right there. So that's, fundamentally end to end. I did set up a player where this is actually Wowza Player. It's a JavaScript player, uses HTML5. You can drop an HLS link into it, and it'll render for you. This is the console where you actually set up a playback. And you can do it inside of Wowza Streaming Engine. If you go to the left pane here and it says Wowza Player, this is just a link. You can choose the stream that you want. I could hit Launch Player Builder. It's preloaded. And in this case, all I would do, because I want to pick up the transcoded streams, is I would prefix the stream name with ngrp:, and this is documented in our transcoder tutorial, and then I would do _all. Now, you remember when I was looking at those streams, and you could see all of them in that group? Well, that's it right there. So I update the preview. When I hit play, it'll have everything available. So you can see over here on the right, I've got my transcoded streams at my fingertips. And then over here it's just on an Apache server. I've got a player that's actually in a page. So I'm going super fast, and I'm certainly available after to talk through this in detail. But you're getting an idea how you spin up a box on your own network. You set up a stream, you start streaming, and you've got a lot of options. Here's the DVR, by the way. So 337, 336. We're going back in time on the black screen, not of death, but it felt like it to me. We've got that stuff going on. So that's that. Any questions? I feel like I'm trying to get to the good stuff. I really want to get to an ultra low latency demo. So am I doing okay? Okay. Thanks for working with me. Let's record one of these streams here. Inside Wowza Streaming Engine, we go to our incoming streams. And let's say I wanted to record the source stream because that's the best one. I click on it. Do you think that does recording, the record button? It does. It tells you can choose inside here how you want to segment it, what file name you want to use. So Wirecast_tim, which is the stream name, that's defined inside the encoder, by the way. And then _source is the actual transcode. In this case, it's just passing it through. It's going to save to that directory. And under segmentation, I've got the option to segment by duration, for example, 15 minutes. There's some convention here as far as segment number, file versioning, et cetera. This stuff gets really fun when you start using REST API to control this stuff. And that's really where you want to get, where you're actually sending REST commands into Wowza Streaming Engine. Cloud does it too. And you don't have to go and do all this dancing around with the mouse. But it makes for a good demo when you use the UI. So I'm going to hit record. And I've got messaging that says I'm recording, and it's pretty darn obvious, recording in progress. In the incoming stream. So we'll let that record for a second. While that's recording, I'm going to do a mobile playback. In fact, I think I already have it set up. Let me make sure I have an IP address on my phone. I do. I'm going to mirror my screen. Okay, so you guys can see my screen, right? Wowza GoCoder. That's the app that we have. Now this is cheating because it's coming over the Reflector app, which is basically a wannabe Apple TV. I'm going to stream this to my Wowza streaming engine, and I'm going to have to get these settings into my phone. So in order to do that, I am going to go to Wowza streaming engine and actually cheat and grab the settings straight off of the server. So this is how I do it. If I need to do a mobile stream, I'm actually in the server right now. I have to get the password. It's really long. And if this iOS stuff works, this keyboard will dynamically, or the clipboard will dynamically go through to the iPhone. Oh, isn't that magic? So I'm in iOS. I go to Applications. Oh, you can't see it, sorry. I go to Applications, and then I choose my page, which is, where am I? Hold on, I'm lost. What's going on? Applications, select a page, I go Live Sources. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, times 10. You could see the look of confusion and bewilderment on my face. So we go to Sources Live, and then I click on GoCoder. And then I change the stream to, I think it's GoCoder Tim. Or Tim GoCoder, I think it is. Yeah, there it is. And I just hit Auto Configure GoCoder for iOS. I wish I could point. And it loads GoCoder up. Asks me if I want to override the settings. I say yes. And then hopefully this will start recording. It is. So it is working. Go back over to Wowza Streaming Engine, refresh this. Now we've got even more coming in. We've got the transcoder really kicking up. And if I go to the source, test player, start, you'll see it right there. And it's fairly low latency off the device. In fact, I think the low latency demo that I'm going to do through the cloud is a little bit faster. Think about this for a simple on-premise, take your phone, stream it locally, unlimited. Do whatever you got to do. It's actually pretty cool. While this is doing both in codes, let's see how the server's doing. So I'm gonna log into Amazon, and I'm gonna see what we're looking at. As a best practice, if you're really getting into this, you want to be on the server to see how things are going. Because the graphs that are in the Wowza Streaming Engine Manager, particularly the memory graph, isn't totally accurate. So right now I'm at 27% CPU. I'm not doing any GPU encoding. That's actually not bad. So this particular server could probably handle quite a few more streams. And that is broadcasting to a mobile. I could show you the player page that I've got. I might as well. I think I've got California mobile streaming or something on here. Oh, I think that's it. That's cloud. Yeah, and so there's the GoCoder streaming that we're doing. So it plays out through Wowza Player and everything just fine. Even the DVR is working, believe it or not. So that's that. Real quick, we're going to do a VOD playback. So to do VOD, I'm going to stop the recording in Wowza Streaming Engine. So right now we've got this recording that is taking place. I'm just going to hit stop. Okay, and that's going to write the MP4. And I go over to a VOD app. And again, over here on the left, I've got my applications. Sometimes they have dozens of them on a server. This VOD application is for video on demand. I need to remember what the file name is, so I'm going to actually go on the server here. Don't be too impressed with my Linux skills. I was on with this guy who worked for this huge aerospace company, and he got on the console, and it was like he was one with his keyboard. It was just like, and ever since I saw that, I'm like, I am so unworthy. You know, when I'm trying to like climb around on one of these servers, it's crazy. So anyway, I do know the ls command, and there's my VOD right there. Notice that it has all kinds of stuff in there. I just copied it. You know, it added the date, time, naming convention on there. And I'm going to go to test player, and I'm going to paste what I just copied from the server. And if all's well, this should just start playing. And yeah, and there it is. So that's the really exciting Wirecast camera stream. And I'm not going to do it, but I could set that up in a player very easily. So with VOD, it basically stages all the files in the content folder on the server. So you can put whatever you need in there. If you got cool videos, professionally produced videos, you can just FTP them into the server or just file transfer them in, you know, over the network, whatever. It does that just fine. There's some advanced capabilities called media cache where you can literally cache or pull the data from a web server or network attached storage, and it optimizes in memory. So there's a lot of VOD optimization features. Most people, I think, are doing it just straight HLS off of S3. But if you don't want to have to you know, get too far down into managing and learning playlists and all that stuff, this is a really easy way to do it. So that, my friends, is a quick primer in Wowza Streaming Engine. Gonna move on. I'm gonna skip setting up an Edge application because it's really not that interesting. Basically, you create an Edge application and you put the IP address of the server in, and it goes to the origin server and gets the stream. Unfortunately, I don't think I have enough time to go through that use case, but again, you guys who are interested in enterprise, setting up Origin Edge, there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. There's the easy way, which is just what I described. You can also push the streams from the origin to the edge, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have any questions on that, I'm available after the session. The on-prem use case, enterprise and government, they're crazy about it. Anyone who's paranoid really likes the on-premise use case. Education, they tend to like it. I think it's really cool when the high school kids get into this broadcasting stuff, and a lot of schools are doing it. There's this guy out of Michigan, and he's a private school, but he has the most amazing technology project going on this campus. He's got not projectors, he's got LED screens or LCD screens all over the place. He's shooting multicast from Wowza, and they're all in sync, and they have, you know, a TriCaster and cameras and lights, and they do these daily announcements, and there's all kinds of stuff you can do with it. Education, you know, it can be bolted into a product like Medial. Medial is just basically like buying your own YouTube. It's powered by Wowza, but it has a curation capability. So you could do lectures and research, and you can have it all on-prem. That's actually really, really cool. And then, you know, it runs down the gamut. House of Worship, which is really moving towards more of cloud services, transportation, you know, cameras, IP cameras, traffic cameras, et cetera, public safety. There's one of our OEM providers actually puts Wowza in police cars and does dash cams with it. It gets used with drones a lot. Medical security, just the sky's the limit on what you can do with on-prem. What time do we have? How are we doing here? I've got 12 minutes. Awesome. All right, so we're going to go through Wowza Streaming Cloud. Now, as I mentioned before, I'll go back to my... No, I'm not going to go back to my slide deck. You saw the diagram earlier where if you go down the bottom, it's Wowza Streaming Engine. You're running your own server. You're customizing code. You're putting modules on there. You're doing all kinds of cool custom stuff. You're owning this thing. That's an on-prem classic Wowza Streaming Engine deployment. For the cloud, like I said before, it's turnkey. You go to a website, you sign up, you give them your credit card, and you've got this robust, highly auto-scalable service at your fingertips. So I'm going to log into Wowza Streaming Cloud, and I'm going to go through the demo on that real quick. Fortunately, it demos pretty quickly. I'm logged in here. When you do log in, it gives you some metrics. If you're running a service, some people do this with social media. The people that want to build a Facebook-like app, for example, they will allow their users to publish to a cloud service, and they'll literally start the cloud transcoder with an API. And sometimes they have quite a few streams running at one time. So if you were to log in here as an administrator, you might be able to see a lot of metrics on past network usage, current network usage, etc. I'm going to create a live stream. I'm going to call it Live from Robert's Fishing Boat. That's an inside joke, kind of, even though it's on the interwebs. And I'm going to choose where I want to send this data. Did I say lie? Well, you are a fisherman. I mean, you are a fisherman, right? The big one that got away, isn't that a thing you guys do? I'll stop now. So you choose where you want to ingest. This is self-explanatory. There's several in the US. They're located pretty much in every Amazon data center globally, and it's also using Google Compute Engine for this particular workflow. I'm going to go with California. And here we are again looking at a bunch of logos for encoders. I'm going to use the Telestream. I wanted to say Wirecast, but I'm going to use the Telestream. Let me zoom in a little so you can kind of see what I'm doing. A few questions here. Option to use HLS or both HLS and HDS. It defaults to HLS. I'm going to make the player a little bit bigger. Oh no, that's not what I want. This is actually the incoming stream specification. So I'm going to make it 1080p. Yes, I want to record it. This is if you're doing closed captions. And remember, inside Wowza Streaming Engine, it was there, but it was a little more complicated. This is really simple. I mean, you just answer a few questions and you move on to the next step. What kind of player do I want to use? Well, I'm not really using a player, honestly. But if I were wanting to take the player and embed the code, I'm setting that up right here. I could put a poster image in, a logo in the upper left-hand corner. And then there's a hosted page if you want to use it. I'm going to opt out of that again because that's just a little more broad than I want to go for this session. And that's it. I've got a stream that's ready to go. If I go to Video Source and Transcoder, I've got that familiar configuration file that I can download, so I'm going to download that again. I'm just overwriting Cloud Wirecast that I had before when I was testing, and I'm going to replace it. I know I'm going to need to put the credentials in, so I'm grabbing the username, and I'm going to start the live stream. Now, when I hit start, it's actually spinning up an instance of Wowza Streaming Engine that is highly optimized for transcoding inside the data center. I think the AWS data center is in San Jose. So while this is happening, I'm going to go over to Wirecast, and I'm going to stop it from going to AWS, and I'm going to go into my output, turn off the Wowza Streaming Cloud broadcast, or whatever we're just doing. I may have called it Wowza Streaming Cloud, but it wasn't Wowza Streaming Cloud. I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to hit Wowza Streaming Engine, and I'm going to import the Wowza config. It's very familiar to what we did before, and I've got a fresh RTMP URL here that has a whole bunch of cool entry point subdomains in it, so that looks like something's going on. Hit set credentials. I have the username. Go back over and get the password. Paste it in there. Boom, boom, okay. And I'm going to start streaming, and let's see if it works, guys. It's working. That was pretty fast, huh? Are you impressed? Oh my gosh. I did not expect that. I didn't. Thanks for being generous. So there's the stream. It's present inside Wowza Streaming Cloud. I can play that out using a regular HTML JavaScript player. So I could drop the code into an HTML page, and this is what you would see. And of course, it's going to have the adaptive bit rates already configured. So remember earlier when I was having to do the NGRP prefix, and I'm having to figure out which group I'm grabbing from? This is all done in the background. It's just pay as you go, very, very robust streaming capability. I'm going to push this to Facebook Live. So I go to the advanced, and I go to transcoders. And I go into Live from Robert's Fishing Boat. I say Life from Robert's Fishing Boat. You live on a boat? No, just kidding. What? One day maybe, okay. So I know that Facebook likes 720p. This is a 2600 or 2.6 megabits, 128 audio. It's close enough for Facebook. In the session this morning, I told everybody to go through the settings with a fine-tooth comb and make sure you're pushing the right stuff to Facebook so it doesn't break. But since I'm going fast, I'm just going to use this transcode. And by the way, this is a list of the outputs. So earlier in Wowza Streaming Engine, you saw something very similar. In fact, when you called me out for the 13 gig broadcast, that was the same location, but now we're in Wowza Streaming Cloud. So I'm going to add a stream target. I'm going to call it custom, even though you can authenticate Facebook Live here if you want to. And I'm going to say fishing with, oh wait, target name is Facebook. I'm getting too crazy here. Provider is RTMP. And then I need to enter in the RTMP data, so I just go to Facebook really quick. And I go to /live/create. Now, if you haven't done this, or if you've kind of been thinking that Facebook Live is lame, you need to take another look at it, because it has gotten a lot better. They actually have an API in the background that sets the streams up for you. Wowza actually sells a device called the Clearcaster that talks to Wowza, talks to Facebook, and it sets up the encoder for you. But here I've got the URLs that I need. So I'm going to copy, where am I? Copy that. So I'm going to paste that URL there, get rid of the RTMP prefix, and then I'm going to go get my super secret stream key. I always end up doing, like going to another application when I'm trying to go to another tab. It's a horrible habit that I just can't break. Everything looks good, hit add. I've got a little green tab there that seems to imply that Wowza likes it. Over here, you're going to see in a couple seconds it start to stream from Wowza Streaming Cloud. It takes a while to provision. When it does that, I can say, hi everyone, greetings from HB. Yeah, and there it goes. You see the preview starting to render. So yeah, jumping really ahead, there's a million different reasons why you would want to push something to Facebook from your Wowza Streaming Engine or Wowza Streaming Cloud. You can see that I did it really fast. You could do it really fast too, or you could do it really slow. It's pretty darn easy. So we've got the ability to push to Facebook Live. I'm going to go ahead and go live just to freak everybody out. So now I'm publishing that to my Facebook. So that's kind of an end-to-end configuration on cloud here. I'm going to go back to my deck and see if I'm missing anything good. Any questions so far? All right, last thing, with a few minutes to go. You hear a lot of talk about latency. The big deal is you're streaming a game and you're a broadcaster or you're an auction guy and you want people to buy your stuff, but you don't want them to be 40 seconds behind because that just ruins everything. Or you don't want to get a tweet that says, you know, Joe Schmo made a goal and you're still like 45 seconds behind. So Wowza created a low latency streaming component to Wowza Streaming Cloud, and it's 100% API driven. So you can't do it from the UI. You have to use the API backend. And you know, earlier I actually created a stream, and I'm doing this just to show you. This is listing all the streams that we have available. If I wanted to create a stream, I would use the API to do that. If I wanted to delete a stream, grab details, whatever. And it looks like I don't have a lot of joy there. Oh, there it is. So these are all the streams that have been provisioned. If I wanted to see like the particular detail about this stream, I copy the stream ID, and then I use the stream info option. And I'm not going to go too far into this, but I'm just kind of showing you how the API works. So this is the detail about those streams. Oh, cool. I can zoom in on it, kind of. So you can see that you've got an RTMP URL to publish to, and then there's a backup URL. It gives you an HLS option, and then it also gives you the media extensions playout. And the way it works, I actually have it set up here on my GoCoder that's still running, by the way. I hope the battery isn't dead yet. I go to Wowza. Is this still showing? It is. I go to this is in GoCoder. I think I've got the host in here preset from before. I do. It's trying to stream. Okay, so now we're streaming low latency from my iPhone out to a server farm that's located in Microsoft Azure. So this is a whole different architecture that's very new to Wowza, but it really does answer, it's single bit rate, very simple. It really does answer low latency streaming. So the playback on this, I have a player in that player page that I had open a second ago. It is ULL streaming. If this works, I'm going to be so excited because demos haven't been good to me the last couple of days. So it takes a little bit for the player to get started. I trust, there it is right there. So you see me moving my phone? This is over a CDN, folks. Now, if you know anything about streaming, yeah, here, this gentleman over here, I can't zoom it. But yeah, you see what I'm talking about? I mean, it's pretty darn fast. And if you're used to using Akamai or other CDNs that use Apple HLS, we can speed that up by making the chunk size smaller. But honestly, you saw how easy, well, if I had time, you would see how straightforward. I'm not going to use the term easy and API in the same sentence. It's straightforward to provision a stream. And there's so many applications for this. It's all provisioned out through the CDN. You basically send the stream there and grab it in your browser. Hopefully soon we'll have this in our Wowza GoCoder SDK, and you'll have glass-to-glass 2-second low latency. There's somebody who did this from Sydney, Australia. And they told us from Sydney to California, because it's still a new service. We haven't done a lot of like global provisioning. I think right now it's really only working in the US, and then we have servers set up in Europe. So this guy's trying it out from Sydney, Australia to basically somewhere in California. 2 seconds, round trip. I have a hard time believing that, to be honest with you. I mean, that just doesn't even make sense to me. Like the speed of light, is it even that fast? But, you know, case in point, it's a remarkable component of the cloud solution. So, to get back on track and kind of wrap this up, we blew through Wowza Streaming Engine. We kind of blew through Wowza Streaming Cloud. We did a little bit of a quick overview on Wowza Low Latency. There are so many use cases for this. I'd like you to feel empowered as anyone wanting to start maybe a junior news agency. Maybe you want to deploy an enterprise streaming solution. Maybe it's House of Worship. Maybe it's your sports broadcaster. There's a lot of guys out there doing a heck of a job with sports. I know Blue Frame Technology, one of our former colleagues works there now. And there's just some really, really cool stuff going on in the space that Wowza touches. And so, you know, let your ideas, let your creativity run wild. We at Wowza, we really do claim to be crazy about helping people get this stuff figured out. So if you're interested in anything here, if you have a use case, if you feel like there's an application, I want to talk to you. We want to do business with you. We want to empower you to do a good job streaming. So that's quick and dirty, 45 minutes in the world of streaming and use cases and stuff. It's the best quick presentation I think I could have given. Maybe sometime we'll sit down and go through it in detail, but that's it. Any questions? Bueller? Anybody? Thanks for coming to the last session. Have a great day. Safe trip home.